Previously recorded live from my office in my roommate's office closet, it's time for the inaugural edition of I'm Andrew, the edible's kicking in, so let's talk about movies. Today's episode, 5 ways that Dune and Neil Breen's Double Down are basically the same movie. Let's dive right in. Number 5, they're both a trip to watch high. So I have seen Dune 3 times, and I've seen Dune 2 also 3 times. And based on that number of times, the calculations just in my head, off the top of my head, not using a calculator, I would say that I have seen the Dune movies high like 87.3% of the time. And with Double Down, I've seen that once. So I've seen that high 100% of the time. When discussing a cinematic experience, which both of these movies are, it's important to keep in mind the context in which you see it, because naturally you will have a very different experience seeing a movie in a packed theater, sold-out crowd on opening night than you will watching it half asleep on your couch 3 years later. So, with that in mind, I have seen Dune 2 in theaters. The screen was wide, it was tall, everything you could want from a theatrical experience. And with Neil Breen's Double Down, I saw that in IMAX. And IMAX is what I call my TV because it's so large and expensive. But mostly really just expensive. So expensive that I have actually accumulated a large amount of debt because I bought this television. And they told me that I could pay it off in interest-free payments, but then they made the minimum payment, like, it's become a problem for me. That's actually why I've started making these YouTube videos, in the hopes that I can become so good at it that YouTube will pay me and I can pay off my IMAX TV. With that said, whether I feel like I saw Dune 2 exactly where it needed to be seen, in an enormous theater on a Tuesday night at midnight, because I'm on a really weird sleep schedule. And I also saw Neil Breen's movie exactly where I needed to, half asleep on my couch, many years after it came out. And now I would like to show you select scenes and shots from both movies that, for me, really, freaked me out while I was high watching them. Okay, so Dune coming in hot. Second shot of the movie, and I'm already freaked out. I don't know what I was expecting from a Dune movie. This is like a painting. What is this doing in a movie? And so welcome to the movie. This is what it's like. I haven't gone on a walk with my dad in a while, but I'm pretty sure, if we did, it'd be in a park and not through the graveyard of our ancestors. That's just who does that? Why do you have that? This one speaks for itself, right? Why, if an old lady told me to put my hand in a box, that shit's not going anywhere unless it's got Cheez-Its written on it. You know what I'm saying? And then she puts her fucking knitting needle up to my neck and tells me it's poison? Are you kidding me? I was just looking for a space adventure, man. I didn't think I signed up for this. You know? I know they needed to test him, but didn't they have something with multiple choice? Or true and false? And then his mom standing outside the doorway. It's like they're testing both of them. Oh, I wonder if that was the point. So, yeah, this one needs no introduction. This is a pretty iconic shot. And you know that, whenever the director walked in that day, he was like, give me, this shot needs to be iconic. Give me an iconic shot. And the director photographer was like, no problem. And I mean, if I'm being honest, this is what Cheez-Its see before they die. There's more weird stuff in Dune, but I'm going to move on to Double Down now.
I don't need much to live on anymore. I just eat tuna out of the can and live in the car. I can tap into any government secret system by way of my computers.
So that was Double Down. Number 4, Sweeping Desert Vistas. If you watch both of these movies, or all three of them, I am treating Dunes 1 and 2 as a thematic whole, as one movie, because that's clearly how they were intended, and not at all because Dune 1 is the only one I have on my iPad. To illustrate my point, I will show you 2 clips from each movie without telling you the movie it's from. And from there you can decide, is this from Dune or is this from Neil Breen's Double Down? So here we go. Clip number 1. I'm not going to tell you which movie it's from. You decide. You try to see if you can figure it out. Okay, all right, that was clip 1. Okay, now clip number 2. Is this Dune or is this Double Down? I'm not going to tell you. Okay, here we go. Could you tell which one it was? Really, could you? If you could you please tell me in the comments, because I've already forgot. Number 3. They both revolve around special white boys who are capable of and responsible for death and destruction at unimaginable scale. Number 2. Both movies exemplify the show don't tell mantra of storytelling. So this is something that I've seen people talk about with Dune 1 specifically, that it doesn't really do a good job of establishing its characters, and I think that's a bunch of because it's really actually very good at establishing its characters. It does a lot of things to do that, so let me just bring it up real quick, and let me just walk you through without any audio, because YouTube's algorithm will detect that. Okay, so here we go. Here, we're doing a study in contrast. We're going to be looking at how Dune introduces 2 of its characters. We're going to be talking about how it introduces Duncan, Idaho, played by Jason Momoa, and how it introduces Gurney Halleck, played by Josh Brolin. So here, look, watch how the camera is moving. It's floating, it's free, and it's bathed in cool colors, like cool gray colors. These are the colors of Caladan, which for a young Paul at the beginning of the movie, Caladan, it exemplifies, safety and comfort. And look at how the camera is moving. Look at the blocking. And then watch what happens whenever they cut to a close-up. Now, here they're cutting to a close-up, and he's about to tell Duncan that he's been having dreams, something he wouldn't even tell his own mother. So what the movie is telling us is that whenever you cut to a close-up between these 2 characters, it indicates a moment of trust, that Paul is opening up to Duncan because he trusts him. And, Duncan is a sort of father figure to Paul, as is Gurney Halleck, as is his own father, but they each represent a different type of masculinity. Duncan and Gurney, they're both characterized as great warriors, and yet clearly here they are being established as very different characters. This is obviously through dialogue and performance. Jason Momoa very much plays Duncan very open, very loose, and he still has, formality with Paul. He understands where the boundaries are. That's why he makes the crack of oh, you're trying to get me court-martialed. But just watch how just easy and open that the body language is between the actors. And then again here's another close-up between the 2, and that's when Duncan is reassuring and encouraging Paul. So this is a very specific way, and again, look at the camera movement, look at the way that the characters are talking to each other. It's very loose, very casual. Now, let's jump ahead. I could even probably do a scene about him and his dad, but I just didn't watch that one as much as these other 2. Fight when the necessity arises. Okay, now here we are introducing Gurney Halleck. And now look watch the camera throughout this entire scene. The camera barely moves. It is mostly locked off. With the camera being mostly locked off, that is part of Gurney's character. He is much more, rigid. He's much more formal with Paul, and there's a greater distance between the two. And what gets them to close the difference? A fight. And so again, watch the camera. Whenever it moves, it's barely imperceptible. Most of the time, it's a simple pan or tilt, and most of the time, it's even indiscernible. But where the camera lacks movement, the editing makes up for in velocity. It's all connected. The filmmaking is all working together to help tell the story of who this character is and his relationship with Paul. And also note, whenever it cuts to a close-up, it's whenever they are taunting each other or threatening each other, either verbally or with a blade. So here, a cut to a close-up between these characters indicates a moment of challenge. They're Halleck in particular is trying to challenge Paul, and then here Paul makes the mistake of saying he's not in the mood, and then Gurney really starts pressing him, and the editing gets much quicker. The average shot length is much shorter than the scene with Duncan, and most importantly, look at the lighting. This is the one scene on Caladan that I would say has a predominantly warm color tone to it. There are some, any scene that the dispenser lamp are in, there's a tinge of glow to them. There is a tinge of glow in the first scene with Dr. Yue, but keep in mind, note at what is happening in this scene. Gurney is trying to warn Paul about the danger on Arrakis. What color scheme is Arrakis just nothing but? It's nothing but warm oranges. And contrast this with Duncan, that was in the cool grays of Caladan. Here, boom, this whole thing is a warning to Paul about the dangers on Arrakis. And in the scenes with Dr. Yue with the dispenser lamps, what happens with Dr. Yue on Arrakis? But this is the one where I would say that is a background. It's a backlight, a kind of fill light for the background. Whereas here, everything is in the warm oranges. And so this is just one way that these two movies this is just one way that this movie is telling you how these characters are different. Also, I'll even go back to the scene with Paul and his father. And if you will notice that, with Duncan, Idaho, the scenes with his father are in the cool Caladan gray. Well, what do Duncan, Idaho and Leto Atreides have in common by the time the credits roll on Dune Part 1? They're both dead. Guess whose face is on the poster of Part 2 and plays a pretty crucial role in Paul's fate on Arrakis? Josh Brolin. So, anyway, anyone who thinks that the Dune movies don't characterize their characters, just watch that again and then change your mind, because holy shit, that movie is so good. So this is Andrew from The Next Tonight. The idiot that you were just watching got so excited after talking about Dune that he forgot to talk about Double Down, which is the point of this video. So I have now taken another edible, and instead of just chilling out watching Bluey, I'm doing this. So there are some people who say that you should try to get exposition across as naturally and as least intrusive on the audience as possible. Like when my mom would put pills in a slice of bologna so that I would actually take it. The people who say that have obviously never met Neil Breen, who has a groundbreaking approach to exposition.
I'm now a covert agent, mercenary for any nation that wants to control another.
So, if you're not familiar with what's happening, he is currently descending rocks, and in voiceover is telling us about himself. Not currently, but give him a second.
My life when I was 7, and stayed with her forever. We loved each other, and we're getting married. I joined my country's secret strategic support branch of the Defense Intelligence Agency to fight terrorism around the world, and became the best agent they ever had. I developed a way to control any computer or satellite the government had.
So now he's mixing it up.
The fact that I became so individually, electronically powerful scared my government, as well as others.
So now he's showing us how good of a hacker he is by
It was
operating
that power that caused them to assassinate my fiancée and break my heart forever.
multiple computers and cell phones at once.
It caused me to reevaluate what I was doing for my country, and that maybe other countries would be interested in my services.
The hacks in Hollywood will tell you that exposition should take up as little of your movie as possible, so that you can leave the rest of that time to, do the movie. But Neil Breen has other ideas, so I am currently at minute 4, and I am going to just pick a random spot somewhere in the middle of the movie.
This is an anthrax dealer. We're going in for the buy. It's good for your resume. I'll help.
Dune and Double Down are basically the same movie. There are no differences. And finally, number 1. Both movies start with a capital D, but there's no D more capital than my big honkin'